Alrighty, here we go. Welcome to the For the Haters podcast. Um, this is something I've been wanting to do for quite some time now, just to give people an opportunity to tell their stories, basically. There's a lot of kind of tall poppy syndrome stuff that happens around the place where people get some measure of success or one way or another stand out from the crowd, and then it turns into them developing basically haters, people that don't like them for whatever reason, usually very unjustified, to be honest. So, yeah, I wanted to kind of start something where I could get people on that have had experiences like that, and just tell their stories, get their side of the story out there, maybe get people to understand why they've done certain things or what made them mess up once, because that's all it takes these days. You just need to mess up once. It doesn't matter how much good work you've done around the place or how much good you've done for other people. One little slip up can be the end of you, or people try to make it the end of you. So that's why I finally decided to kick this off, basically, because that conversation is actually really relevant to me. And my mate Stevo over here. Stevo doesn't say much, so this is mostly going to be me talking tonight. In general, I'd like to have people come on here and sit here and have a drink with me. I'm drinking a Long Island iced tea, which I may have put a little bit too much cola syrup in, but it still tastes bloody good. So, for those who don't know what's in a Long Island iced tea, it's basically 5 shots. Vodka, white rum, tequila, gin, and triple sec, a bit of lime juice, and a dash of cola. So 5 drinks in one. So we'll see how we go by the end of this, by the time I get through this. Stevo's got himself a margarita over here. He's decided to get right into the swing of things, on topic, and appropriate the Mexican culture. So, good work, Stevo, trying to offend people all the time. It's kind of how he rolls. So, alright, so let's get into it. So, why I am the topic of this story is because I very recently have been cancelled, so to speak. So, I'm not going to say any names during this podcast. I'm going to try not to say any names anyway, because there's risks of things like defamation when you basically cause harm to someone or financial loss to someone one way or another by things you've said or actions you've taken against them. So I'm not going to go down that path, although some may have very recently. So I think a lot of you that are probably watching this already know about the cancellation thing, but don't have possibly the full story around it. So let's start there. I went to a show, as I do. As a lot of you would know, I write for a magazine. I do live show reviews. I do album reviews, event reviews, and interviews and stuff like that as well. Well, I used to. I no longer do. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So the review that I wrote was, I can't remember exactly, but they're generally somewhere between 1,000 to 1,500 words, depending on how many bands are on the bill, how exciting it was, how much there was to write about. So, unlike other writers, I actually write the reviews while I'm standing there in the crowd watching the show. By the time I get home, I dump that into my computer. I do some quick spell and grammar checks, basically through Microsoft Word, and that's it. The review gets sent off. So when I'm doing a review, I'm telling a story of what's happened at the time. You generally get a bit of a lead up to the show from me. I try to add a little bit of humour where I can, because there's always funny things that go on around the actual show itself and what's happening in the crowd. So I made an attempt at humour based around the State of Origin, which is just played last night, conveniently enough. And now I'll tell you exactly what was said. I've got the review up here on the screen in front of me. So these are the exact words from the review. Next up is a band of cockroaches called, for those not from Australia, cockroaches refer to those filthy Mexicans from south of the Queensland border. All right. So those two sentences caused all sorts of dramas. So to begin with, I received a message or something like that on Instagram, and I'll just be clear, I'm not very good with Instagram. I never really got into it. It was kind of, well, to me it just seems like a place for people to post fake photos and make out how good their life actually is, when it's probably a bit of a shit show in the background. So I never really got into it. It was kind of the safe space too. It became the safe space for people who were very easily offended on Facebook or couldn't handle actual discussions. So I'm more of a discussion person than I am post a whole heap of photos. I'd rather talk to people, have a chat, you know, sling a bit of shit at each other. And on that note, those references I made there in those two sentences, right, about the cockroaches from New South Wales. For those who don't know, the cockroach is the mascot for the New South Wales State of Origin team. It always has been. So we refer to them as the cockroaches because that is their mascot. That's what they're called. As for the Mexican part, we refer to them as Mexicans because they are from south of the Queensland border. I did clearly state that in those two sentences. Now, the bit that upset people, one of the bits that upset people, we'll get to the real bit later on, but one of the bits that upset people was that I referred to cockroaches as filthy Mexicans. Now, that got twisted into me referring to Mexicans as filthy cockroaches. I never referred to Mexicans as filthy cockroaches. I referred to the cockroaches from New South Wales as filthy Mexicans. Mexicans because they are from south of the border, and filthy because they're fucking cockroaches. Now, why that was so hard to comprehend, I have no idea. And I originally started getting these messages through Instagram, or what I thought was messages where people had taken a screenshot of the review, the very first one, and basically someone called me out and said something along the lines of, "Do better next time, dickhead." And I was like, oh, okay. It come up in my messages. And then I kind of questioned this guy back. I'm like, oh, you know, what's up? What's this all about? And I can't remember the conversation word for word, but it's basically me originally going, what the hell is going on here? Because I didn't get, at the time, why this was so offensive. So the conversation continued, and this individual did post portions of this conversation, not the whole thing, little snapshots that paint a picture of me that they wanted to paint of me, or give a narrative of me that they wanted to give of me. Initially in that conversation, I'm confused. I'm like, is this guy actually really offended? Like, what's the story? I asked him if he was offended. He said, no, he's not offended. I said, okay, well, what's the problem? And the conversation kind of went around in circles. I then reposted his original message to me, and I removed his name from the top of it, right? Just do the right thing. I'm not going to throw someone under the bus with their name out there publicly, even though that had just been done to me. So I removed his name from the top of it. Then I get a message from him saying there's no need to cut my name off. Basically, he's pissed off because I removed the credit that he had for calling me a dickhead or whatever ensued. And then from that, it just continued on, it snowballed. There's several different people reposting my stuff, or reposting the review with different kinds of nasty things to say about me, including calling me a dickhead, calling me a word that rhymes with Yahtzee, which I won't say, because apparently if you say that word, YouTube will cut out some monetization or something like that, or stop the spread of the podcast. Even though these people can throw it out left, right and centre like it doesn't even really matter. I also got called a cunt, retarded, all sorts of different things. All sorts of things were said to me. And at no point, and correct me if I'm wrong, at no point in any of this on these threads did I ever call anyone any kind of defamatory word or insult anyone like that. I was basically confused about why these people are so upset, what is going on, right? Now, I shouldn't have been confused because it wasn't the filthy Mexican comment that offended these people. And the reason it didn't is because I actually don't believe any of them are Mexicans. Now, just to be clear, Mexicans refers to a nationality of people, like Australians, right? So it's, Australians are people who live in Australia. Mexicans are people who live in Mexico. Mexicans are not a race, just like Australians are not a race. Yes, in Mexico, there's predominantly Hispanic and Latino races there, but like most countries in the world now, it is multicultural. So how that statement turns from that into me being a racist and to me being a word that rhymes with Yahtzee, I do have an idea. I know exactly how this happened. So the following sentence in this paragraph introducing this band from New South Wales, this band of cockroaches. My following sentence, and this is me being me, if you know me or read any of my stuff or follow me on Facebook or other socials or anything, you know I don't mind to stir it up a little bit every once in a while. So the following sentence I write is, and now that I've offended everyone from New South Wales, as well as the anti-word that rhymes with Yahtzee woke crowd, I'll get back to the show. Now, admittedly, I didn't word that correctly. What I should have said instead of anti-word that rhymes with Yahtzee is that everybody's a Yahtzee woke crowd. That's what I should have wrote. I didn't. I should have checked myself and changed that. But like I said, I get back from a show, I dump the review onto a computer, I do a quick spelling and grammar check, and away it gets sent to be published or not, and edited or not. Sometimes it's edited, sometimes it isn't. So anyway, back to that sentence. That sentence is what offended the people that I dealt with that day on Instagram. Not the filthy Mexican comment. What offended them was that I called them out on exactly what I thought they would do, which is exactly what they did. They got super butthurt. And I don't think any of them were generally offended themselves at the filthy Mexicans comment. I think they're offended because I called them woke. So, well, it's pretty clear that that's what offended them, in my opinion, is that I called them out for being woke and I called them out for doing exactly what they did, right? Now, as I said, that resulted in me being called all sorts of names under the sun, including racist and a word that rhymes with Yahtzee. Now, I got accused of being a sympathiser of those people too. Now, the problem with this, and the problem that the woke crowd has with this term at the moment, is that it's being very, very overused, and overused to the point where I believe that it probably offends the Jewish community, because when you downplay that word to someone who says something that you don't agree with, because basically you don't have an argument otherwise, it's just a name you can call them that apparently wins your argument every time for you. When you do that and you downplay it, it takes away the severity of what originally happened. And we all know what originally happened, apart from some conspiracy theorists who say that that didn't happen. Now, they probably need to drink some more or something like I just did and work on that. But, so let's get back to that, right? What this group of people did originally involved mass genocide of a particular race or group of people, as well as genocide of other races and other people, such as people with disabilities, so on and so on. Anyone that was a bit different, right? Anyone that wasn't perfect, so to speak, or so they thought. And if you keep using that word and just calling anyone that you don't like or you don't agree with that name, it's just really, it's kind of hypocritical of the woke crowd to do that. Like, you're downplaying something that was such a severe historical event, such a tragic historical event. And then you're going to compare me to those people and other people to those people. You know, so I don't know what more to say about that. I think that probably makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. So I'll carry on to go on to, so what's actually happened since that. So since that's all happened, someone, I believe the original commenter, who I won't name, but will probably make themselves known for a bit of publicity or notoriety once they catch hold of this. But this person obviously knows some people tied up with these bands and their management and so on. The word goes basically all the way to the top of the international management for one of these bands. And then it comes back down the chain, so back down the promoters, back down like national managers, state managers, other touring companies involved with other shows. So what happens from that? Instantly, like the next day, I lost my media accreditation to 4 upcoming shows in one hit. I was blacklisted both nationally and internationally to review shows and even review albums through certain organisations, all connected to the big gun. So whether or not they've all done that because they agree with the woke crowd and the turmoil that come from those comments, or whether that was done because they were just trying to save face and make sure that they weren't hurt by my words, because some other people almost were pretty close to. And that is why I'm no longer involved with a particular publication, because there had to be a separation there. So I'm no longer writing for that publication. You'll all know who that is, if you know who I am. So basically, I'm no longer involved pretty much in the scene, apart from, I do have a couple of bands, but we haven't done much for years, but might work on that now. I've got a bit more time on my hands. Now, how did that affect me? So originally there was a fair bit of anxiety about what was going on. Not anxiety for me, because I can deal with it. I've dealt with people who hate me for years, for whatever reason. I've got people who stalk me down on social media, just looking for me to slip up at any chance they get. And I've copped over the years so much abuse, that it is quite hypocritical, as it is this time around. You know, don't be a bigot, but oh my God, if you disagree with someone, be the biggest bigot you can, be as aggressive as you can, be as brutal as you can with your words, even though you're not getting the same treatment back. I've had people stalking my profile since then. I've always had people stalking my profile. Like I said, people go looking for stuff that goes wrong, or where I go wrong, or step out of line, or say something they don't like. So, well, I've lost my train of thought here for a second. Well, let's get back into it. I've actually got a list up there so I know what to talk about. I don't know how long this is going to go for. I don't know how long in general these podcasts will go for, but I guess this is a good starter to give us an idea, because I guess as long as I can talk about myself, if we double that when I've got a guest here, maybe that'll give us an idea of how long these things might be. So we'll go from there. So, back to how I was feeling. Anxiety, like I said, not for me. I'm used to it. The anxiety was for the people connected to me, and how this may have harmed them, because people were not just attacking me, people were attacking the publication as well, and other people around me. Which again is pretty sad. If you've got a problem with me, attack me. Don't attack people that I know just because I know them. It's again super hypocritical for the crowd that's meant to be there to be nice to everyone, and that kind of thing. So I was all right. But I will say this, and I will go into it, because we always need to have these discussions. And this is no excuse, by the way. I just thought I'll throw this out there. I have recently dealt with burnout, basically mental burnout through my work, and also through the review side of things, the journalism side of things, as people call me, a journalist, which I'm not. But more about that later. I suffered some mental burnout quite recently. And that's on the back of, for a long time, probably 6 to 9 months, if not a year, of me not quite feeling right in the head. And you're going to say, you're obviously not right in the head. Well, I don't completely disagree with that statement. It's probably quite correct. But, for a long time I was feeling really, really cloudy, a bit forgetful, all that kind of stuff. So I had this burnout a little while ago. It basically put me off work, out of action for a week while I regathered myself. But at the same time, I was sent for some CT scans, because there may just be something wrong with my brain. There probably is. There's probably something wrong with yours too. We're all a little bit different. Someone define normal, that'd be good. But I went to get CT scans, and it came back and they discovered that I have a sinus infection on my left side of my skull. Basically, my head's full of shit. Yeah, there's your punchline again. I'm full of shit. So yeah, there was that little issue that I had. Went on to some medication for that. Went on to some medication just to give me a bit of clarity as well, because I'm actually currently being assessed for possible ADHD or somewhere else, on the autism spectrum or something like that. So yeah, I'm possibly mentally disabled. So you can no longer pick on me, right? I'm a disabled gentleman. Well, I don't know yet, but it's quite possible. So yeah, just medication for infections, medication just to stabilise my thought patterns at the moment. Everything's kind of working well. I did have the infection blew up again on me last week, and it was the sickest I have ever been in my life. I was bedridden for about 3-4 days with just basically migraines and fevers, sweats and chills. It was awful until I got some more antibiotics, and it sorted me out pretty quickly in a couple of days. So it's been a fun ride. This podcast would have actually happened earlier if that had not have happened, but it did. So it took me a little bit longer than I was hoping. But it's actually been good because it's given me some time to run through some more ideas about how I was going to approach this and what I was going to talk about. Because I didn't want to make this a hit piece against anyone. I just wanted to tell the story of what happened. So, anyway, that's me. That's my headspace. Yeah, it's fucked. I know. Now you know. You already knew. You already thought that. So I guess I'll get back to the whole profile stalking thing. So after these events and the Instagram thing, and if I haven't mentioned already, I actually made a public apology for the review and the words in the review, which wasn't accepted by the woke crowd. They just come back and told me that I still don't even understand what I did wrong. Why did I even try? Why can I not apologise properly? I apologised. But I apologise to anyone I actually offended. And that would include pretty much any Mexican that I actually offended. If you're not a Mexican and you were offended by that, that's on you. That's not on me, right? If you're Mexican and you're offended by it, I'm sorry, again, that I offended you. It was not meant as an offensive remark towards you. It was meant as a burn against people from New South Wales, because that's the kind of way we talk, and we have done for many, many years since the State of Origin has been going, which I believe is 1980. Great things started in 1980. It's been around forever, and I didn't mean any offence to any Mexicans. Like I said, if I did offend you and you're a Mexican, sorry about that. If I offended you because you're woke and you're uptight and you can't take a fucking joke, too bad. Get over yourself, right? Find something to actually have a decent sook about. Back to the profile stalking. So I think that apology was viewed on my page about 20,000 times, and I believe on the publications page that I was working for that reposted that, it was getting up somewhere around 100k views of that apology. And depending which platform you are on, whether you're on Instagram or Facebook, would depend on the response that got. So the response on Facebook was pretty mild and pretty supportive, and people like, oh, hey, yeah, got it, maybe bad choice of words, maybe you picked the wrong crowd to say it to, that kind of thing. Instagram just went the other way and started hurling abuse. And when it all first happened too, the little crowd of people, obviously all friends in one particular type of music scene, where they all act like they're pretty hard, but as it turns out, they're actually quite soft. They they just went crazy with it all. And basically, they were talking about, it was constant, oh, look at the ratios, look at the ratios. I love ratios. And what they're talking about there is the people in support of me versus the people against me. On Instagram, it was overwhelming. It was pretty much 100% against me. Because, like I said, I don't go on Instagram that much. I don't have too many followers on Instagram. A lot of people that I know don't use Instagram that much or follow me that much on there. And also because the original posts that this was happening on was not on a post of mine, it was on a post of someone else's. So that's only being viewed by people in that circle. Contrary to that, Facebook was completely the other way around. It was almost 100% in support of me. Bar a couple of people, or a few people I might say, and I'd like to talk about them because it was a bit disappointing to see the knives come out like they did into my back and the attempts that were made to basically bury me. And these are people that I believed were friends that I see at shows that do similar work that I do. And I kind of thought, why would these people be turning on me so much for these comments? And especially because they're comments that these people would understand because they're from Queensland. And they're around about the same age group, so they would get it. But I guess the reason was they saw the opportunity for a job opening and thought, I want that gig. Good on you. Go for it. Go for it. Get out there, write as many reviews as you can. Not just for international acts that you're keen on, but everyone. Every show you get invited to, go to it and write a review. And don't just review the headline band, review the local bands that support them too. Because when it comes down to it, that's who is going to be hurt from this whole cancellation. And it's not me. Yes, I'll lose some privileges to get into shows, which means that I'll probably only go to shows that I actually want to go to now. And I'll have to pay for them, which a lot of local bands would know. When I went to local shows, even though I'd be put on the door, or even though the bands would see me and invite me in for free, I'll pay. Even when bands would offer me merch for free because I was there, because obviously they want a good review or something, or they just like me, I would pay for the merch. It's what I do. So the loss really there, me not writing, is the fact that there's possibly not someone out there anymore writing those reviews for local bands that don't get exposure. And it's not just live show reviews, it's also album reviews that came through the publication from local bands that I would do as well, because not a lot of reviewers want to review everything that comes through. They just want to pick the stuff that they like. I'll have a crack at anything. I don't care. I'll tell the story, you know. Sometimes it's better to discover a new band and write a review than it is to write a review about a band that's already released 10 albums and they haven't had a good one since their third one, which is quite common, as you would know. But anyway, so the reason I do that is because I love heavy music and music in general. I've done it for years. Opportunity popped up, I did that. And hopefully the opportunity will come back around once it all gets forgotten about and buried under 7,000 new 7-second Instagram reels, which it probably already is. Or buried under 1 million Instagram photos of people pretending to be something they're not. Anyway, yeah, as I said, I don't really like Instagram. So, got a bit off course. I've actually jumped ahead on my list. I'm over here. I need to be back over here. So, some of the stuff that come from profile stalking was one of the first ones is that I'm a Trump sympathizer or Trump supporter. So those who know me, again, would know that I don't sit very to the right, even though super woke crowd would say I do. But that's because they're so far left they've basically pushed me to the right. But politically, in general, I'll sit a little bit left of centre. I've probably got quite similar values to a lot of the woke crew, just not as extreme. Because I think we can all agree that there's an issue there with the extremity that's taken to, and the political correctness, which has taken an absurd and extreme tilt again, which I believe is an overcorrection from what's just happened in the US with Donald Trump and the right wing winning. So the left here have basically, overcorrected to make sure we don't get a right-wing leadership here, which we didn't in the election. We kind of saw how that went. It basically went to the shit for the right. But yeah, more about that later. I'll get to politics later. But the Trump thing, if you've actually took notice of my profile and not just picked the one picture that you liked and probably didn't read the comments around it, you would know that I'm not a Trump supporter. But you got to ask the question, why, if I was a Trump supporter, would that upset you so much? And the answer to that is you've probably got TDS. So for those who don't know what TDS is, that's Trump derangement syndrome. So with that, I don't believe that just sits on the left. It doesn't. It also sits on the right, because there are people on the left that are just so deranged about everything Trump does that they hate him. He's the worst man in the universe. He's a word that rhymes with Yahtzee. Everyone that works under him, like Elon Musk, is that word again that rhymes with Yahtzee. And that's the extreme derangement syndrome, that side. The other side on the right is the ones that believe that everything Trump does and everything that Trump says is correct. Both sides, honestly, are as whack as each other. My opinion on Trump is he is fucking hilarious. And last time he was in power, it was fucking hilarious. And last time he was in power too, there was that overcorrection with the left where it just went completely whack. And the last 4 years in the US under the Democrats was proof of that, how whack that went and how far that went. So it'd be good if we don't go that far over here. So anyway, that's the Trump thing. Another thing that came up, and you can go looking for this, I did hide it on my profile, and I thought, you know what, why hide it? I already posted it. It's there. It's not me saying anything in particular. It's me sharing a meme. So the meme is a photo. It has 4 individuals in it. It has Dylan Mulvaney, George Floyd, an MS-13 member, and Katy Perry. And I think it's something along the lines of Dylan Mulvaney being Woman of the Year, George Floyd being a hero, the MS-13 gang member being a family man, and Katy Perry being an astronaut. The funniest thing about that whole meme is Katy Perry being an astronaut. As for the other ones, you can think what you think, but there is some element of comedy in Dylan Mulvaney winning Woman of the Year. And there is some comedy in an MS-13 gang member with tats all over his face and all over the place being referred to as a family man. We're all family men if we've got family. Doesn't mean you're not a gangster. Right? Doesn't mean you're not breaking the law, doing bad things. Now the last one, I don't even know whether to touch on it, the George Floyd thing. I will talk about it because it is unfortunate that George Floyd died under the circumstances. And yes, part of those circumstances was a police officer acting in an inappropriate manner and causing harm. But as we all should know, and this is fact, is that George Floyd was a known criminal. He was approached by the police because he had just broken the law. He also, at the time, had enough fentanyl in his system to kill the average person. And that possibly had part to do with why the extreme measures used by the police officer resulted in what they did. So, very sad incident for many reasons, but is calling that individual a hero appropriate? I think if you're going to do that, we probably need to redefine what being a hero means. So, anyway, enough of that, because that's probably hurt some people's feelings. Anyway, let's talk about that later. Come and sit in the chair if you want to have a chat about that kind of thing. Steve-O won't be here, so he can drink his margarita because he's not even getting into it, eh, Steve-O? Yeah. All right. So next thing, go back to the part of the abuse I was copying online when this all happened. So the grammar word that rhymes with Yahtzees all came after me about my review and spelling errors and grammar errors and all that kind of thing. Which, as I explained earlier, how I write my reviews, a bit different to other people. I write them on the spot, I come home, I quickly spell check, grammar check, and I send it away. I may not have even done the grammar check that morning, but I have since on that document, and Microsoft Word says I'm all good. But anyway, who says Microsoft Word is correct? So they came after me for that, and then came after me for basically, how can I call myself a journalist with my bad grammar, and how could a journalist post this racist garbage like this, and all that kind of stuff. And the funny thing is, I'm not a journalist. I'm not. I'm a person who likes music and I write about it. I haven't had any tertiary education to be a journalist. I just write stories. I just tell stories about what happens when I go to a show, or if I'm reviewing an album. If you've ever read one of my reviews of an album, I write the story of me sitting down and the adventure I go on while I'm listening to that album. I basically give you a play-by-play of every song. And that's not what journalists do. Journalists write tabloids, or most of them these days that I see themselves calling themselves journalists. They're not even writing stuff, they're just sharing something that some other clickbait journalist has written somewhere else in the world. I got accused, also on that note about clickbait, of my words in the review being clickbait. And I guess with that, it might be worth looking into what clickbait actually means, because if you're reading my review and you're almost halfway through it, which this would be, maybe a third of the way through it, where these comments were made, you already clicked on it before you read those comments. So how is that clickbait? It doesn't really work like that. Clickbait is, you see some sensationalized heading, like the ones that a particular large magazine in Australia write all the time, and you click on that to get the story, which ends up just being rubbish and nothing to do with the headline. That's clickbait. So yeah, maybe just before you start throwing that out, just understand probably what that means, because it doesn't mean what you think it means. All right, I still got heaps to go through. So I guess I'll step into what it's really like as a journalist or media. So it seems like it's a hell of a lot of fun, right, to most people. Oh, you get to go to all these shows, you get in for free, blah, blah, you know. Yeah, and to be honest, it's great. I've saved a lot of money on seeing shows that otherwise would have cost me a fortune. But in general, there's still costs around that to me because I am a voluntary contributor. As most people you'll find these days who are writing for independent publications are. They're voluntary contributors and they do it for the love of music and they do it because of the little fringe benefits we get. And I've been on some big adventures with this publication. And yeah, it's been fun. We went on a cruise. We got 8 days out there, cabin paid for, but we paid for our flights and accommodation before we got on the boat. And we paid for our drinks packages on the boat too. So it cost us a fair bit of money to go there and basically do voluntary media work for them. And that is like most of the big festivals that we get here, the big metal and alternative festivals. There's 2 of them, which you probably won't see me at anymore because I have been blacklisted from those. But yeah, so I'll give you my first example of that kind of thing. So my first time doing interviews was at one of those festivals about 3 years back, and I thought, oh, this is great. I'm backstage. I get to talk to all these awesome people. You know, it'll be great. And we got backstage and we had this little media area which was right beside some of the band tents and then beside another like restaurant area tucked in behind that where all the bands or artists went to get their catering and drinks. And where we were, everyone was, some people within arm's reach from us, and we had an imaginary line we got told about that we weren't able to cross. We weren't able to go and approach anyone if the interviews weren't organised at our tent, which I understand why they do that, but it is so tough because, like I said, you can reach out and touch these people, you can say g'day, and you're not allowed to. But that's not the sucky bit. The sucky bit is that I think that whole day I maybe seen 1 or 2 songs from 3 or 4 bands the entire day because we were basically stuck backstage waiting for certain bands to come in for interviews, them postponing, them coming in later, interviews being rescheduled. So we were stuck backstage. And that pretty much happens every time we go to a show like that to do on-site interviews, backstage interviews. That's pretty much how it works out all day. We generally, by the time the headline band comes on, or the last 2 bands, we're finished with that, so we do get to watch them, but by that point, we are fucking knackered. It is hard work. Yes, there's a bit of fun. I've got to talk to some awesome people, but it is hard work, and we do it voluntarily. So just keep that in mind. Not a paid journalist. I'm not a journalist. Like I said, journalists write tabloids and clickbaits. They talk about drama that's happening in bands that no one really needs to know about. We just want to hear the music they play. We just want to see them live. We don't need the Big Brother style stuff background. That's what journalism is now. And that's what people go to university and study journalism to do. So, anyway, I'm not a journalist, just making that well known to you all. Back on the joys of backstage interviews. We had one year that for 3 hours we could not even get a bottle of water. We had a bar within 50 metres from us that we weren't allowed to access because it was across the imaginary line. And we were sitting there doing interviews with bands without even a drink of water to soothe our dry throats. And yeah, you're sitting back going, oh, poor you, Jimmy, you got it so hard. I know, it's a cool gig, but I'm just saying it's not as great as you would think it is. We don't have unlimited free drinks backstage or unlimited food. It's actually very hard for us during the day to even be able to get away to go and get something to eat at full festival prices like you. and full drink prices like you, which certain journalists from established publications will post about frequently. That's what journalism is these days, music journalism. It's drink prices at festivals. Yeah, top work on that. So anyway, I have had some fucking great times doing this stuff, and it is a shame that it seems like it's kind of come to a bit of an end. But I'll still be out there when I can, checking out shows, and I may even still do some album reviews and live reviews as well that I'll push out to other publications that might want to publish them. And also I'll be putting that kind of stuff on my own platforms and my own social media, which I've never done before. I just better mention here too that when all the blacklisting stuff occurred, that the original review was taken down immediately by the publication. But this is how far it went. There was actually a request from certain companies in the industry to remove all of my reviews and interviews from this particular publication. All of them. 200 plus of them. That notification you just heard was my watch telling me it's bedtime. So next time I'll turn that off so I don't get the random noises. But yeah, so all of my publications, or all of my reviews and interviews were requested to be removed from the publication. As far as I know, that hasn't occurred. And I believe the reason why is because that would then, like I said earlier, doesn't do harm to me. It does harm to the bands that I have reviewed their live shows and their albums, because they will no longer exist. And some of that stuff might be the only reviews that bands have had. And they're out there in a publication that's worldwide and has hundreds of thousands of followers and views and all that kind of thing ongoing. So that would hurt the bands themselves. But, you know, in saying that, if there are any bands that want any reviews I've done of them removed, please feel free to reach out to me through my social medias, or jump on my website, jimmyglinster.com, and send me an email from there. Happy to get anything removed that your band would like removed because it's attached to my name and me being a word that rhymes with Yahtzee. Yeah. So back to the good times. Back to the good times. Let's keep this positive for a minute, for a second. So I've had some fucking good times doing this stuff over the last about 4 years. I think I've been pretty heavily involved in it. I've met heaps of cool friends, heaps and heaps of cool friends. And the sad point is, and I did talk about this a little earlier, is that it also appears that I've met some foes in the scene. Some people that are just now out to get me. They're out to get me. They're out to bury me. For, yeah, like I said earlier, the only reason I can think of is to try and get my gig at that publication. So like I said, that gig is open. Get out there, do it. Do the hard yards like I did. Do all the reviews for the local bands that I did. Get into it. Be part of the scene. Be a good part of the scene. Because we need more of it. Because this scene is actually pretty toxic. Pretty damn toxic. And not toxic in the way that bands who say the scene's toxic say it's toxic. But it's those type of bands that are the toxic ones. It's those type of bands that get around talking smack about people within the scene that are trying to help them, like me. They talk smack about other bands because other bands are probably better than them, you know, or probably drawing bigger crowds than them. And that shit is just rife at the moment, and there's no need for it. It did get better for a long time. It was bad to me like it is now. Back in like the early 2000s, that was a really toxic scene where bands weren't working together. They just all bloody hated each other. And to be honest, the scene related to this whole incident and these bands are the worst ones for it. They are. And it's because the people in that scene are these super woke lefties. So let's talk about woke, because I got asked through all this Instagram stuff, someone asked me to define woke. And I thought, well, that's a bit rich from a group of people that can't even tell me what a woman is. But anyway, woke. They obviously don't know themselves because they don't realise they are it. But let's talk about woke. So, woke to me has had a rebirth a couple of times. So, the original woke that I come across was woke in the sense of like spiritual enlightenment, to the point where there was like local groups here that guys were running, some bands on the coast here actually running one, and it was about basically, for them particular, groups of blokes getting together to talk about stuff as adults, because men don't talk about stuff enough, to visit their spiritual kind of side, to make peace with themselves, that kind of thing, to become a better person. And that kind of originally started being this sneaky thing coming in with like DMT and other hallucinogens that help you reach your spiritual side. And in some of these instances, it also become about drinking a lot together, which is kind of counterproductive for the whole spirituality thing. But that was the first version of woke that I saw. And that was pre-COVID. And then we hit COVID, or spicy cough. Don't know if I can say COVID without getting demonetized. Then the spicy cough thing happened. And then it transformed into this woke was... It was an extension of the spiritual enlightenment, but an extension in a way of a whole group of people that were smoking way too much DMT and taking way too many hallucinogens, basically claiming that they knew the meaning of life and all this other kind of stuff. And it was getting that QAnon kind of way, and they were woke, they were awake to everything that was going on in the world, and we weren't. And if you weren't, you were just following the narratives and all that kind of thing. So it was a totally different kind of, an extension of the original meaning, but then a kind of different path where it went down conspiracy theories. And if you weren't woke like them and you weren't taking DMT, that you didn't know what was going on in the world and you're being misled and all that kind of stuff. Then you get the third version of it, which is what we have now, where, again, it's kind of spiritual enlightenment, but in another way. I don't know if the drugs are still involved in it. They possibly could be, the way some people carry on, but it was a right-wing thing there at the end, during COVID. At the start, it was kind of centre, it went full right. Now it's gone full left to the extremes of basically people being upset over everything for no real cause other than being upset because there's a chance to be upset for someone else, and a chance to virtue signal basically a lot all the time. I could do a whole podcast about woke. If someone would like to come and sit here where Steve-O is, we can have a chat about woke. I'd actually like to talk to someone on the woke side. I have a certain person in particular that I quite enjoy the company of, that is woke, but not to the full extreme side of it, but sensible woke. Because there is sensible woke, right? There is sensible woke. This time around, in my instance with what happened, I won't say sensible woke because it was just the biggest overreaction ever. But anyway, there's woke. All right, I'll probably wrap this up soon. I have no idea how long this is or has been going for, or is going for at the moment. So let's wrap it back around. I said I was going to talk about politics. So let's get back to politics, because this is really all about politics. You know, it's all politics. It's all woke left politics. This whole situation that's just happened is all woke left politics. So I guess we'll talk about the recent election. So Labor, landslide victory. Liberal National Party pretty much wiped out. One Nation pretty much wiped out. Trumpeter Patriots pretty much non-existent. Was always going to go that way. And the Greens almost cancelled too, even though I think they did get a lot of votes, but they didn't manage to get any seats or something like that. So that's part of this whole big overcorrection thing again, I believe. But I think it's kind of gone both ways, because the Greens shows that, okay, people don't want to go too far left, like the States did with their last political term. And people definitely don't want to go right, which is why we kind of ended up back at Labor, who used to be very centred. They now sit probably a little bit too far left for my liking. They need to come back a little bit, and I think that's how it might work out now with what's just happened. But maybe my podcast is a good chance for someone like Pauline or Clive or maybe Adam or whoever the new person is in the Greens to come in for a chat and tell your story. Tell your story for the haters. What's going on? What can you do to convince them to come back? But anyway. And no, that wasn't an invite to have a word that rhymes with Yahtzees on the show, as some of you left wokies would call Pauline Hanson and Clive Palmer. That's the kind of people you call Yahtzees. And we talked about that earlier, how that's just a misrepresentation that could be considered offensive by the people who did deal with atrocities from that certain group of people. As for the LNP, they don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they need a new Trump. Maybe it's me. Probably not though, because I've never voted LNP in my life, and I probably never will. Anyway, all right, I'm going to wrap it up. Politics isn't fun. We're through a little bit in the end. If you want to come on and have a chat, I invite everyone who would like to come on. If you've got something going on, maybe a new album coming out or a tour or something in a band, come in, we'll have a chat about it, we'll talk about it, we'll talk about some shit you've dealt with in the scene, because I know you've probably dealt with it, you've probably dealt with some of the toxicity that I talked about. Come in if you've just got something else you want to have a chat about, pretty much anything. Come in if you just want to talk some shit, because that'll be fun too. We'll just pour up some more drinks, and I'll probably drink them a bit quicker because I've been nursing this one and my ice is fully melted now. But anyway, so yeah, that is the For the Haters pilot episode. Cancelled. And it possibly could be the only episode ever. But let's just see. Hit me up on socials. If you want to come in and sit in the chair, have a drink, have a chat. So it'll always be Long Island iced teas. That was an Outlook notification, so I've got to remember to turn those off next time too. But yeah, hit me up, come in, have a chat, we'll have drinks. It's always going to be Long Island iced teas on the menu. Unless you're scared, then we'll get you water or something, or a lemon spritzer. Otherwise, we'll pour these ones up. We'll have a few drinks. We'll have a chat. So I think that's about it. All right. Cheers. Have a good night. Cheers, Steve-o.